We now welcome on very, very, very special guest, Keegan Nickerson, Bearcat Journal. Keegan, I'm not going to lie, you look a little bit like the Rock meme, you know, the Dwayne the Rock meme? When he's in, you look great, buddy. How are you doing?
Does he have the fanny pack?
You need the fanny pack, but you look good. You look great.
You were too quick with that, and I didn't even realize it. That's a credit to you. I mean, you just absolutely killed me.
Please credit to me. All right. So I got a lot of questions for you. We'll start with a couple football ones. I just want to rattle a couple basic football ones off, just off the front. So I feel like the team coming into this season, I specifically did not have a lot of hope. I didn't have pretty much any expectation whatsoever. But it feels like they've brought some life back into the city. I think it's been a fun season, if nothing else. After the Pitt loss, I think everybody was saying, hit the panic button, fire Satterfield. That has slowly calmed down now. Do you feel better about the state of the program as of this second on November 12th than you did before the season?
Before this season, not exactly.
Okay.
I think the thing with Brendan Sorsby, he gave me a lot of hope that Cincinnati could be a good football team, just with how accurate he was, how he stood in the pocket. That's really what Cincinnati was missing. And coming into the early parts of the season, he threw the ball really, really well. And then there were some parts where the offense just wasn't moving as well, but you weren't seeing that many bad mistakes. And then against West Virginia, you just got basically the worst Brendan Sorsby and didn't get really any good. Because the thing about him is he's a playmaker. He tries to make those plays, and sometimes there's mistakes. Sometimes he makes those great plays, but against West Virginia, it was just bad. And it's starting to be a trend where coming from the UCF game to now, Cincinnati's passing game is just struggling at the end of the day. And they're not stretching the ball downfield. It's really, really stuff where they just keep on repeating the thing of, we're going to take what the defense gives us. And yeah, that makes sense. But if you want to win a Big 12 title, if you want to contend for a Big 12 title, which is their goal, you kind of have to be able to stretch the ball downfield. I think you have the weapons to do it, and Xavier Henderson and Joe Royer, and then two solid receivers in Tony Johnson and Jamoy Mays, and you have the quarterback to do it. You should have the running game to offset it, but it's just not happening right now.
3 games left in the regular season. Is there added pressure to get to a bowl game? Like if you look at Scott Satterfield right now, we can call last season a wash. I don't expect Scott Satterfield to come in right away and fix everything. This year, I think there was a little bit of hope that they could get to a bowl game. If they were to, and this is why I kind of asked you at the beginning, just, what are your vibes regarding the program? Because if you would have told me that, after the Pitt loss, the Bearcats would still be a bowl-eligible team, I would have kind of laughed at you. But now it seems like you gave us the hope. We've seen the best of Brendan Sorsby, and now it's starting to slowly tilt back the other way. How much added pressure is there to get to 6 wins?
I think that was what a lot of fans needed to see this year to kind of be able to go into next season happy that Sat's the guy. And now you're at 5-4, and you're staring 5-7 right in the face. I mean, you have to play Iowa State and Kansas State on the road, which are 2 extremely tough environments. Iowa State's reeling, so you can look at that and say, they might not be as good. Yep. Or you can look at it and say, they're coming off 2 losses, and we're playing them on the road. And then you have to go to Kansas State and Manhattan, and then you have to face a TCU team that I think will probably be battling for bowl eligibility right there too. Like, they should probably be at 5 wins as well when they come to Nippert Stadium. So when you look at that Pitt game, I was still confused about that. I think the defense, they were just trying to get their footing. You go and beat Miami, and then you scratch some wins together. And I was looking at, okay, Texas Tech, I think they could go in and win that game. I think that they could go in and beat Colorado. And now there was a point where I was thinking 7 to 8 wins possibly, but now best case scenario, the rest of the way is probably 6. You have to beat TCU and get to the bowl game, or there's going to be a big smirch on this season. And Scott Satterfield is going to go into next season with way less momentum than originally thought.
You mentioned Brendan Sorsby. He's been incredible this season. I don't think Brendan Sorsby was going to be as good as he was. Is there any fear that he's going to leave and take more money elsewhere? Do you think I mean, I hope he's here forever, at least for the next couple of years. But there's in this new age of college athletics, I'm always scared that when a player has a good season, he's just going to transfer out.
I mean, there's always that fear with basically every player, especially with how volatile it is. I think that UC is very, very confident that he's going to be back next season. I think he has very, very good relationships with the people at UC, with Coach Satterfield, with the staff, the entire offensive staff, the recruiting staff. I think he loves it at Cincinnati, and I think he's a loyal guy. He was loyal to Tom Allen, and then Tom Allen gets fired, and he sees where he's at, goes to Cincinnati, and there was the report that when he committed to Cincinnati, before he was signed, before he was enrolled in classes, Lincoln Riley and USC reached out to him, tried to get him on campus for a visit, and he said, no, I'm committed to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So if he's not going to leave, then I'm pretty comfortable and I'm pretty confident with him coming back to Cincinnati. But the kid's childhood team was Oklahoma. And I'm guessing they're going to be wanting to spend a lot of money on a quarterback, and they're going to see this kid and maybe go, hey, we could offer him a lot of money. But I think he's a loyal guy, and I know Cincinnati loves him, and I think he loves them back. And I think he'll probably be wearing a Bearcats uniform next season.
Let's hope. I hope and I pray. Switching over to basketball. This is what I want to talk about. No offense to the football team, but I kind of knew they weren't fighting for a championship. So I'm on to basketball. The Reds kick me in the face. The Bengals punch me in the liver. And I'm just getting kicked around by every sports team in this city. All I have left is Wes Miller. That's all I have. He has to deliver me a good season. We have to get back to the tournament or I'm going to cry. I think this is the most excited we as a fan base has been in maybe like 10 years. I don't know how many years it's been. But we heard some news yesterday that probably isn't in the list of exciting things that could happen. Dan Skillings will be missing some time. A minor knee surgery is what I was told. It sounded like it's not a big thing, but there's always worries, especially when you start talking about a knee. So how worried are you about Dan Skillings going forward? When do you think we could expect him back?
I'm not too worried about it. It's never good when your guy's not completely healthy. You want him healthy. There's no question about that. I just think the important thing is the Big 12 slate and getting him back for conference play. I think the timeline right now kind of angles at a return around the Xavier game, which I think that would be massive to have him back for the X game. But their non-conference schedule isn't extremely difficult. Dayton is a much different team than it was last year. I think Georgia Tech lost to Columbia maybe, and Villanova also dropped a bye game at home. So those non-conference games, I think UC might be able to manage, but losing Dan Skillings is a really big piece. You saw it in the Morehead State game. I mean, they tied Morehead State in rebounding. And UC was one of the best rebounding teams in the country last year. He's such a big piece in that part of the game. But I just think you need him back for the conference slate. That's what you have to worry about. That's where you're going to make your NCAA tournament bid and your resume for an NCAA tournament. It's getting to 12 or 13 wins in the Big 12, getting to that 5th or 6th spot in the Big 12, and just comfortably being in the NCAA tournament mix and not really being on the bubble. So I'm not too worried about it. If it was a longer thing where he was going to return in the middle of Big 12 play, kind of like a CJ Frederick situation last year, then it'd be different. But I think the kid's been super positive on Instagram saying, I'm going to be back soon. You got to go through trials and do this stuff. He's not down on himself. So I'm pretty confident that he'll be okay.
Other injury news, Day Thomas. Can we expect Day to return on Friday?
I think Coach Miller said after the Morehead State game that he's optimistic that he'll play. He hadn't really been involved in practice, and Miller said that he's going to have a different role, so he'll probably be practicing this week, and I would expect him to be back Friday against Nichols.
I don't know if there's a 6th Man of the Year award in college basketball, but if there was, could Day Thomas win that award? I feel like this guy, and again, last season he was spectacular, and slowly you saw Jizzle take over the starting point guard role, the starting guard role, and Day kind of shifted back. I know Day got hurt towards the end of last season as well, but I think this year he is so valuable to the depth, at least, of this team. It's absolutely incredible. If there was a 6th Man of the Year award, would he win it?
Well, first I'll say you thinking he was playing incredible was in the minority of UC
Well,
fans.
okay, but okay, it was just the layups. There was just a couple layups, and if he could make a layup, he'd be the best player in the country. But he missed a couple layups here and there. And when I say here and there, I mean like he missed like 8 layups a game. But outside of that, defensively, he was a rock star. And I think
Yeah.
towards the back half of that season, he was very good. I think he's a valuable asset to the team.
That was I completely agree with you, but that was the biggest storyline last year was everyone wanted Jizzle to start. And
Yeah.
I mean, no one could see how good Day was defensively. And it's even more important this season not having John Newman to have that defensive stopper. Dylan Mitchell is playing really good right now.
Yeah.
When you add in Day Thomas, that's going to be even bigger. And I was talking to my boss Chad about this, but
Good guy, Chad. That guy's a good guy.
Great guy. He's a great guy. But one of the biggest things about this team and just how deep they are is you had Jizzle James overtake a point guard who's only gotten better.
Yeah.
Like Jizzle James just took his spot, and Day Thomas is still the same or better player than he was last year when Cincinnati almost made the tournament. So I think getting him back will be huge. And then just imagine being one of those point guards, one of those shooting guards.
Oh, yeah.
And, you see Jizzle go to the bench and like, okay, I get a little bit of a break here. And then you have to face a fully rested Day Thomas defensively. I mean, that's just going to be tough. I would not want to be that guy. So he's going to be a huge piece. I think he's a juice piece for this team, and
Yeah.
Wes Miller loves playing him.
Love it. One guy, speaking of guys we want to see more of, Rayvon Griffith. That's a name I want to hear. Shout out to Euler. My mom teaches at Euler. He went to Euler. This is a guy we've wanted to see for a long time. Does the Skillings injury open the door for him? Are we going to see more Rayvon this season than maybe expected?
I think probably it obviously shortens their rotation. I think him and Josh Reed might be fighting for that 11th to 12th spot at the end of the rotation. But I think you're going to see Connor Hickman start. I believe that's what happened against Morehead State. I think you're going to see Connor Hickman start for Skillings. But I think just naturally you're going to see more Rayvon Griffith. He's just got to be where he needs to be defensively, and he's got to make the plays that he's supposed to make.
Yeah.
That end of the rotation spot, you don't need to go out and take 4 threes, take a bunch of shots, and try to score 20 points. You just have to be where you're supposed to be and do your job. And I think Rayvon Griffith is able to do that. He's extremely athletic. He's extremely motivated and extremely driven. I don't know if there's a player on UC's team that wants UC to win more than Rayvon Griffith. Just being from Cincinnati, having to wait the entire year. I remember I would get to games early, and he would be out before the game during his red shirt year, and he'd be doing a full workout with Andre Morgan, the assistant coach, getting a full sweat before the game, and just seeing all that stuff that he has to do in the dark. I'm really rooting for the kid to get on the floor, and if this is an opportunity for him to do so, that's great. But this team is so loaded that when Dan Skillings comes back, it's just honestly going to be tough for him to get those 10 to 12 minutes that a lot of fans want him to get.
Simas Lukosius. This is a guy I think coming into last year I didn't have any expectation for whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Then, and I'm not going to make a joke. This isn't a joke. But I will say, ever since he was hit by a car, he's been absolutely incredible. He has been phenomenal. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to be as big of a playmaker as he's been. He's been the go-to scorer. He's been the go-to shooter. Is this what Wes Miller thought he would be? Was this the plan for Simas Lukosius when he transferred in?
Yeah, I think after he got hit by a car last year, he was not healthy. Like he was probably playing at 80, 85% with that shoulder. And it definitely impacted his ability to shoot the ball. Then you see at the end of last year, just went absolutely crazy. And I remember I was doing research for a bold predictions article, and I was like, what if Dan Skillings can figure out his 3-point shot? Like, I think he made 16 of 35 threes or something around that range in the last 8 games of the season. I'm like, was that UC's highest volume 3-point shooter? And then I go and look at Simas, and I see, oh, no, he made 34 of 81 in the last 8 games last year. Like, the dude was on a tear. And you kind of got a peek into what he could have been if he didn't get hit by a car. Obviously, there's first year in a program, you're getting connected to the coaching staff. Sure. You're trying to figure out how to play with your players. But if he could have been, I don't know, 4 to 5 games into the Big 12 what he was at the end of last season, those last 8 games,
Yeah.
UC probably makes the tournament. He was just so good offensively, and you see it going through the first 2 games this year. The most interesting thing to me is he was kind of just an outside threat last year. He wasn't really driving in, getting inside. And I asked Wes Miller about that, and he said after the Morehead State game, might have been after the Pine Bluff game, but he told me, I was talking with Josh Leffler last year, one of our assistant coaches, and we both agreed, like, Seamoss is probably our best ball handler and scorer in action. So we need to get him inside. It just wasn't there last year, but you're starting to see it now that he can really score from anywhere.
Again, I hate to keep rattling off these names, but I'm excited. I'm an excited little guy. Jizzle, Dylan Mitchell. If you had to give me, I know the season's already started, if you had to give me a preseason MVP of who you think is going to be the most valuable player for this Bearcats team in this season, who do you think it would be?
Is it most valuable or most important? Most valuable?
See, this is a brutal distinction. Most valuable. Most valuable.
Most valuable right now, just based off the 2-game return, I'll say Dylan Mitchell.
Okay.
He's an inside threat offensively more than I thought he'd be. And that's probably me just not really knowing his game a ton coming out of Texas. I'll be honest, I always just thought of him as an explosive lob threat. But he's creating stuff inside. And he's finishing around the rim with post moves. And then defensively, he's a stopper, and he can rebound with the best of them. So I think just in terms of being able to do a little bit of everything and doing it really, really well and providing energy and being that guy of saying, this guy could play in the NBA. Yeah. Being that guy that can go and play in the NBA, big for recruiting for UC. I think this year it'll be Dylan Mitchell.
You mentioned the lob. Can we stop that? Can we stop the lob, Keegan? Because I listen. I love a good lob to Aziz every now and then, but it felt like last year our boy Dan Skillings and Day the name of the game for the offense was let's see how high of a lob we can toss up and hope Aziz comes down with it. I need the lob to be perfected this year if we're going to run the lob play.
It's been basically perfected through 2 games. They haven't missed any.
Well, I mean, we're playing, no disrespect to the strength of schedule here so far, but these 2 teams haven't exactly been tournament teams. So we'll see. I just want a little bit better of the lob. That's all I ask. And real quick, I have 2 more questions, just because I know we're running low on time here. Aziz, I think depth of the big man has been a big thing this season. How important is Aziz Bandaogo?
Well, that's why I asked the most important player question, because it might be Arrington Page behind Aziz Bandaogo. What is he going to be able to do backing Aziz up at the 5? He didn't do great rebounding against Pine Bluff, but he went 7 for 8 from the free throw line against Morehead State, and I think he had 13 points. So he was definitely better. There's just things defensively that Aziz can do that a lot of people don't appreciate until you see a guy like Jameel Reynolds in there and a young guy like Arrington Page in there who will struggle in places that Aziz just wouldn't. But if Arrington Page can be a guy where there isn't too much of a drop-off, because there's naturally going to be a drop-off from one of the best big men in the country, at least best 7-footers in the country, I think that's huge for Cincinnati. And then for Aziz Bandaogo, it's just about staying healthy. He's going to give you what he's going to give you. He's going to bring you 8 rebounds, and he's going to get 8 to 10 points and be a factor in the lob game. And he's going to open up stuff for Seamoss Lukosius and Connor Hickman and Jizzle James throughout the entire offense because of how much attention he demands. So I think if Arrington Page can back him up well and Aziz can just be himself, that's going to be one of the most important things for this Cincinnati team this season.
I noticed you said lobs again. We're just going to keep lobbing. That's okay. It's going to be a lob season. That's all right. Final question. This is for my guy, Jacob, who's in the room with me right now. Do you think the Bearcats football job, do you think that's a good job in this 2025 college football landscape? Do you think it's a good job in the Power 4?
I think it's a job that people want, as it has been throughout its entirety. There's been some pretty good coaches that have come through Cincinnati, and they don't stay because, honestly, why would you? If Ohio State or Michigan or Notre Dame is coming and calling, you're going to go and coach there. I mean, that's just the long and short of it. They're going to pay you more money. You're going to be able to recruit, and it's going to be a little bit easier to win. But, I mean, this is a job that a lot of people want. It's in a big city, so it's easy to recruit in that way. Nippert Stadium is an awesome stadium, and you're in an area where you can recruit effectively. Now, if you're comparing it to one of the best jobs in the entire country, then no. And it's just like the recruiting thing. Recruits are going to go to Notre Dame, Michigan, and Ohio State before they go to Cincinnati. But with Mark D'Antonio coaching here, Brian Kelly coaching here, Luke Fickell coaching here, it's obviously a place that kind of fosters success. So I think a lot of people see that and will be interested in it. So yeah, I think Cincinnati's a good job. I don't see how you could say it's not.
Yeah, so you would say Jacob's 100% wrong then. That's what I learned from that.
Not 100% wrong.
He's 100% wrong. No, stick with it. Stick with your guns.
Fan.
All right, that's it. Keegan Nickerson, Bearcat Journal. Thank you very, very, very much for coming on, talking Bearcats with me. And also, if you could get a picture of yourself compared to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson side by side, you really need to do that. I'm going to see if I can make an edit after the show about it because it's absolutely uncanny right now. But thank you very Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Keegan. Have a pleasant day.
Thank you, Elliot. I appreciate it.
We'll see you, buddy.